Well, good evening, Utah fans. We welcome you in to our first of many basketball coaches shows tonight, coming to you live from the Huntsman basketball facility here on campus and just in the lobby of the Utah basketball offices. You're listening live on our flagship radio home, ESPN 700, watching live tonight on the University of Utah Athletics YouTube page and on Twitch. It's great to have you in tonight, Bill Riley and Larry Krystkowiak with you. We're doing something different this year. We've never done a coaches show this early before. They're usually end of November, beginning of December, but we decided to kind of give you a season preview show, and then we'll pick up our regular bit of shows at the end of the month of November because the first exhibition game's coming up on Wednesday night, and a week from tomorrow night, this guy right over here and I will be over in Reno for the regular season opener. So I thought we'd give you a little primer on Utah basketball, and frankly, we could probably spend 3 hours talking about this team. You've got so many new faces, don't you?
We do. A lot of new guys, a lot of teaching taking place, but it's been an awful lot of fun, and I think our coaching staff's got a lot of energy, and we're rejuvenated and putting in time, and the guys keep getting better. We're at a point where you can really see, I'd say every 10 days, some significant change, but there's just so much to talk about. You know, we had that scrimmage on Saturday, the secret scrimmage, and it's the first time in 5 weeks that you end up guarding a bunch of actions that you're not familiar with. There's an awful lot of the unknown, and you know, you throw in some adrenaline and some of those things. So we had some things that we did really well. I thought we got out and pushed the ball and ran the court. We kind of the baton was passed between some of our big guys. They'd run until they got tired and put a little heat on guys in transition, which we haven't done in years past. But still, you know, that bugaboo that we talk about a lot of times with the turnovers. We had our starting 3 guys in the backcourt, our smalls, combined for, I think, 16 turnovers. So we had a super high rate of turning the ball over, and we just, you know, had a great practice today and chopping wood, trying to get better.
All right, by my count, we'll get to some of the scrimmage stuff here in just a minute. By my count, I sat down and did this today. You've got 1 senior, you've got 1 junior, you've got 4 sophomores, you've got a redshirt freshman, and 10 freshmen. That's a lot of new faces. Is this about the most inexperienced or new team you think you've ever coached?
Well, I think I joked with you a few months ago when I said I coached a 7th grade team in Del Mar, California, one
exactly.
season. It's you know, and the numbers are a little bit skewed. That we got 4 walk-ons.
Yeah,
you know, those guys are freshmen, so that 10 number is really 6. But it's great. I mean, you can't take for granted what guys don't know. I mean, you'd think that everybody had a pretty good understanding for screening, and it's going back to 001
Basics.
Classes, and it's fun, you know, but you just go, wait a minute, there's a bunch of guys here that have probably, as a small, for example, their whole life they grow up having screens set for them.
Right.
And a lot of what we try to run in our offense, we'll use the small on a big and maybe clean it up with another big, so a double screening action. But we've got guys that have no idea what it's like to set a screen on a big body. So, you know, when you start thinking about that, like some of these pretty elementary things, let's break it down and make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. It's got to be clear and concise, and it's a lot of fun, you know. And then the good news is these guys are going to be around for a while and can kind of grow with the program, and you know, that teaching becomes really valuable when they become upperclassmen.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Normally I'd be sitting here talking to you, Larry, about how fall practice has gone. But the rules by the NCAA, they have done a few good things, and that's they let you work out with these guys a little bit in the summertime. So you get a little bit of summertime with them. You get fall practice with them. It used to be you didn't get to be in the gym with them in the summertime,
right,
and you didn't get to be in the gym with them in the fall. It was mid-October before you got to be on the court with your team. So
right.
I'm guessing with this particular team, with so many new faces, that's been good.
It has been really good, you know, and I think we had a coaches meeting this morning, and maybe a typical practice, Bill, 2-hour plus practice might be some segments of 20 minutes on different concepts, 20 minutes for this, 20 minutes for that. And I spoke about it with our staff. Let's break this down, and in a 2-hour practice, let's get 4 things now. You know, where there's less items to do, but we really have to kind of sharpen the saw and make sure that we teach some of these elements. And I think it's important with the young group that you don't have too many things that you're throwing at them, either offensively or defensively, that you expect them to remember. Because with that youth, we've got to keep things really simple, and I think we're finding a good blend for doing that. And the guys are learning the terminology, and so it's just that early phase. It's what we've talked about all the time is the phases, the forming, storming, norming, and we're storming.
Okay.
Like we're still trying to sort a bunch of things out. I think we've got a little bit of a rotation in mind with some guys, and then you got to norming, and then you got to start performing. And we're a little bit of, we're a ways away, but it's exciting. We're fired up about Wednesday. We're fired up about starting the preseason officially at Nevada. A former coach from UCLA and Steve Alford, and a team that we're not that familiar with. So this is that time of year where it's really important to think about yourself.
Right.
It's not going to be what you expect, what's coming with the other team. It's kind of like those playground days when you just were out there and survival of the fittest kind of deal. So, again, simplifying things but really focusing on playing hard.
The NCAA lets you play either 2 exhibition games in the preseason or an exhibition and a quote-unquote secret scrimmage. Most programs, Power 5, bigger programs, are opting for that secret scrimmage because it's usually against another bigger or similar type program. And then you get your exhibition game before the opener, which will be Wednesday night for you guys against Texas Tyler. You guys opt to go with a secret scrimmage against another school. I'm guessing the advantageous part of that is you can run it like a scrimmage, but you can also run it like a practice, and you can have multiple hours in the gym. Is that right?
Yeah, and Saturday.
You can go all afternoon if you want, right?
You can. Boise had a number of transfer kids that weren't eligible and by rule couldn't even make the trip.
Really?
So they were a little bit depleted with numbers, and we had more of a large group. So we found a little bit of common ground and played 5 possessions in the half court. We guarded 5 of their plays, then they guarded us 5 times. So you're not exerting all the energy running up and down the floor. And we did about 3 or 4 of those exchanges, and then we just went to some straight zone in the half court, and then played 2 20-minute halves. And when we finished with that, some of the guys that didn't get much of an opportunity in the scrimmage, we let them play about 5 or 6 minutes so that everybody got a little bit tired, by the end. But you can stop. You can make some changes, I think, on the fly. And the coaching staffs get together a little bit ahead of time and try to scheme some things out. And, we can talk to the officials. Here's some things we've been dealing with some of the new rules. So there's more communication with that and what we can expect, how they've been told to ref games. So there's just, I think, a lot more communication and a lot more flexibility than going and playing in an exhibition game.
Yeah, it just kind of sounds to me like it's almost a combination of a practice, a scrimmage, and almost situational stuff too.
Yeah.
Like you can work on a lot of different things rather than like what you're going to do on Wednesday night where it's just going to be a straight basketball game.
Yeah, and you play against coaches that you like and
right.
staffs that you're close to, and a home and away. We've done it in years past with Texas A&M when they were good, with Wyoming NCAA tournament teams, and you can meet at a neutral site. You can do a home and away. Boise thought their team needed to travel, so it made sense for them to get on a bus and have a little team building. Next year we'll do the opposite. And then the exhibitions, I think, are really important for your home staff and obviously your crowd and everybody to kind of work the kinks out.
Right.
Even though that staff was there, the stat staff and some of those people, you don't have all the ushers and everybody, the concessions, because you don't have any fans at them. But we feel with our situation it's a pretty good blend to play it that way, one scrimmage. And I don't know what the future holds for it. If there's going to be any expansion on it or more flexibility, but it's pretty good. And I know for everybody involved, it's 5 weeks of beating up yourself, and it's just good to have a team with a different color coming in. Because, when I started breaking down the film Saturday night and Sunday, it's great to watch video and only be watching 5 guys. Up until then, you're constantly watching the offense and the defense, and anytime the offense did something too spectacular, your tendency as a coach is to, what did the defense not do? And it's not always that way.
Sure.
But so just to have that, focus with those 5 guys out on the court. You can kind of get into some rotations. It was good. It was a good Saturday.
All right, that's good. Let's take our first time out here on the Coaches Show tonight, which is brought to us, as always, by Smith's. Also, remind you, our shows are brought to you by Anheuser-Busch, making your Saturdays and your game days better. Keep it crisp, Utah fans, and drink responsibly. We'll come back and talk a little bit about this team. Inexperience, but a lot of talent on this team, and where some of that leadership's coming from, at least early on in camp. You're listening to the Basketball Coaches Show presented by Smith's from Learfield IMG College. Coaches Show. Kyle Whittingham and I will do the football thing coming up tomorrow night. We'll be over in the football facility tomorrow night. Broadcast brought to you tonight by University of Utah Health and Sports Medicine. Got a great game plan for your family's health. Visit them online at uofuhealth.org. Football's playing well right now.
I'm glad you brought it up. I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I figured you would.
No, it's some serious defense, man. But, the offense, they're getting it dialed in too, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch and, see some veteran leadership and talent all over the field.
I'm glad you said that because we've gotten so caught up in the defense because the numbers have been ridiculous and they're playing so out of their minds. We've forgotten the offense. I was running the numbers today. They're top 3, top 4 in every category in the Pac-12. Total offense, points, time of possession, scoring, the whole thing. They're up there. They're above their averages from a year ago. Andy Ludwig's come in and done a fantastic job. But the defense is playing so unworldly that we've kind of overlooked how good the offense has been.
Yeah, I know.
It's a good problem to have.
We ran in cross paths with the football staff Sunday morning after recruiting, and Morgan knew that they were going to be challenged to score against their defense with a lot of freshmen, but the concern was, are we going to be, because Cal's defense was pretty good.
Yeah.
And it was a great plan, and there's a lot of athletes, and the quarterback's tough as nails, and so it's great. It's that time of year right now. A big game on Saturday, and I think we've all got kind of the ideal scenario in our minds how it's going to go down. But I don't know that there's too many people in the country, based on how much I watch college football, that's playing at the peak level that the Utes are right now. They seem to be clicking on all cylinders.
Well, I've joked with people. I think sometimes we get caught up in that ESPN bias, and you watch game day, and a lot of their focus is the SEC and the Big Ten. But I would put the way Utah's playing right now, offensively and defensively, up against a lot of those schools back east that are getting a lot of the hype because they've got it, and they're playing well. By the way, I know you've got a lot of friends in Seattle. Tell any of them if they want to come and spot for me in the booth. I've got a good seat in the booth on Saturday afternoon. It's our first afternoon game up there too. We've always played night games, and it's supposed to be sunny, and that view up there on a sunny day in Seattle.
Yeah, it'll be rocking too.
Yeah, it'll be nice. That place will be loud.
Great college environment. Yeah. No, I can't promise that you'll have any of my helpers. They'd have a hard time spotting at a basketball game, let alone a football game.
Yeah,
so.
Just tell them they can't have any fun before the game, otherwise they won't be able to see much.
Yeah.
Basketball. We mentioned we're talking a little bit about the experience of your team. You're an inexperienced collegiate team with those 6 freshmen that are going to contribute for you this year. But I'd be curious, when you've got so many new faces and you've got a JC transfer and Alfonso Plummer and things. Well, what's the biggest challenge, Larry? There's a lot of challenges, but what's the biggest challenge you and the staff face with so many new faces in the program?
Well, I really think it's trying to find the pieces that play the best together. You go into a practice plan and you want to see Rylan Jones play with Alfonso, for example, because Rylan might be considered our best assist guy, and if Alfonso's always on the other team, he may not be getting the open passes, the looks that he needs. But you also want competition within practice, so you want maybe Booth and Rylan to be going against each other. But at the end of the day, when you play an opponent, you want them playing on the same team. So it's a little bit tricky in who you plug in with each other, and I think it's really important. I believe we talked about it, but we want to get to next Tuesday and pretty much have a plan for our rotation, 8, 9, perhaps 10 if there's foul trouble guys that you're going to play with, and those guys have to have some pretty serious reps together.
Right.
And so that's where we are now. I think a year ago, probably had a few more unknowns, and things kind of came to fruition, and it took us till December, January before we sorted some of those things out. As you know, if you want a chance to be in an NCAA tournament, not only the Utes, but everybody in the Pac-12 better do a good job of going and getting some quality wins in November and December. And I do think there's more veteran players overall in our league. We weren't maybe hit as hard with the NBA draft. Because that perception, as you mentioned, nationally is the bias. If the Arizonas and the UCLAs are down, unfortunately, that's kind of how the rest of the league is judged. And it doesn't matter how much we cannibalize ourselves, we're never going to get any credit for it, even though everybody's getting better.
Right.
So it's important, I think, and it's a common sense of urgency from all 12 coaches and all 12 teams. We know when the time to make some hay is. It's coming up. So you can't mess around, and maybe you can't hang your hat on saying, well, our team just gets better as the year goes on, because you gotta make some hay early.
Last year, we saw some guys get better as the year went along. Timmy Allen, Booth Gotch, Riley Batten, all were freshmen last year. And by the end of the year, they weren't freshmen anymore. They were playing at a high level. Timmy ended up making the all-freshman team. Booth and Riley did some really nice things. Where have you seen them go from their freshman year to their sophomore year? And I'm guessing you're leaning on them for some leadership. No
question. And I think the two guys that really come to mind leadership right now are Timmy Allen and Riley Batten. It's a joy to watch them do just about anything. I was riding the bike in the weight room today, and Riley was in there lifting, and he doesn't walk between, doing some reps and the sink to get his drink. I mean, the kid's just dialed in.
Yeah.
He hates being second at anything. He's really developed, I think, and changed his game. has had some great practices, filling it up and scoring the ball more. And he and Timmy are both doing a nice job of the leadership on how we do some things. They're helping some of the younger kids. It's not like they're cagey old veterans, but they have
right.
a few reps under their belt. But it's a really well-connected team, I think. And then what you have to explain to those guys is any success that Timmy in particular, because he got some notoriety as a freshman. What you have to remember that Cedric and Parker, some other guys, were maybe on the scouting report a little higher than you, and you were a little bit of an unknown as a freshman. Well, there's not any secrets now, and you guys might just be the top guys on the other team's scouting report. So what worked a year ago, you might want to think about, okay, I got to, if you have some strong tendencies one way or the other, it doesn't take long for that news to get out, and you better have counters and you better establish an overall game. So one of the big things with Timmy Allen, he's got an incredible ability to get his feet in the paint, but we've got to understand he's also one of the toughest kids I think you could come across to referee. And so when there's contact on a lot of plays, especially with some of the charge taking and the flopping that goes on, you put yourself in a high risk all the time where there's always a whistle to be blown. Charge block, and it takes two of those early in a game, and you're sitting your butt on the bench.
Yep.
So we need him to kind of establish his game and be a playmaker. I've challenged him to start thinking about some triple doubles, and you only need 10 or 12 points to get one of those, but if you've got one of the skills on our team that can make everybody around you better. So there was some great clips on Saturday where he did that. And then there was some clips on Saturday where he had 6 or 7 turnovers. But here it is. If you just slow down, and then not only that, his teammates can't stand there and watch, because if you move a little bit, whether you're cutting to the rim, he can pass it to you or he can kick it to somebody for an open three. And that's going to be a big part of our offense, I think, is figuring out a way to utilize some people that have some pretty strong tendencies.
So Timmy, Riley, and Booth are back, but who are some of the newcomers? And how are they going to play roles here beginning really Wednesday night and then next Tuesday? We'll talk about that as the Coaches Show continues here on a Monday night. It's our kind of our season preview, and it's brought to you by Subway, where you can buy the footlong of the day and get 2 chips, 2 cookies, and a 20-ounce drink for free at Subway. Back with more with Larry as we talk Utah basketball. The season's almost upon us, right here from Learfield, IMG College. Being brought to you by the Larry H. Miller dealerships. If you need a car, visit LHMauto.com. It's as easy as click it, get it, drive it. Larry H. Miller dealerships, driven by you. Bill Riley, Larry Krystkowiak with you. First exhibition game Wednesday night, Utah fans. And I got to tell you, if you're wanting to get a look at this team before their first game at home, Wednesday night's the night to do it because they'll open on the road at Nevada a week from Tuesday. So if you didn't make it out to the night with the Runnin' Utes, come on out on Wednesday night and check the basketball team out. UT Tyler, we'll talk about them coming up in a bit. 6:30 for the start time just across the way at the John M. Huntsman Center. So, new guys. You got a lot of new faces. Rylan Jones is a kid you mentioned. Matt Van Komen, Big Matt. Mickey Jantunen, the young man from Finland we heard a lot about, who's come into the program as well. So you've got a fair number of local kids. You've got a fair number of
Brandon Carlson.
Brandon Carlson back from his mission. Jackson Brenchley back from his mission too. So
yeah, that's 4 Utah kids.
4 Utah kids
that are freshmen.
in a Finn.
And then whom I forget? Brennan Wetzel.
Yeah, Wetzel
we talk
from,
about
from
him.
San Antonio, the big sharpshooter. And Alfonso Plummer, who's not a freshman, but he's a newcomer too.
Yeah, and you're talking about one of the hardest parts or the more challenging parts with the team is each of these players that we mentioned have a definitive skill set that they're really good at. And there's also weaknesses in their game. And so it's important. Jackson Brenchley, for example, is shooting the ball as well as anybody in any of our, all the data that we keep. He's shooting well over 40%. I think he hit 4 in the scrimmage this Saturday. But some of the ball handling and defensive stuff, so you're trying to, bringing him on board. And you got to figure out a way to mesh because you can't put your best 5 offensive players on the court and expect to win many games. If there's 3 of them that have some deficiencies defensively, I think you're fooling yourself. And as we talked about with football and any sport, we know where you make your money playing some D. And so finding that blend of mixing some of those guys in and out. Brennan Wetzel, Alfonso Plummer, they're 2 of the best shooters that we have, but they're also, when you look at all the numbers defensively, they're making more mistakes than anybody.
Right.
So it's not because it really is a lot because they don't know what they don't know. It's not because and they're both trying and they're both making new mistakes now. They're figuring some things out on that learning curve, but trying to find that pot of mixing them all together so that we can be really efficient when we're playing 5 other guys. But our big guys, we got as much size as we've had. Big Matt, for example, first 2 weeks of practice, I would have thought maybe a redshirt candidate.
Right.
And then he had 3 weeks where he was our best big on all the numbers.
Well, at night with the Runnin' Utes, he blocked everything around. He must have had 5 or 6 blocks that night. He was fantastic.
Yeah, and, again, when you're talking about the pessimistic coach, it's like, haven't you guys figured out that Matt's in there? There were plenty of chances to not shoot some of those and find a teammate. So all that's mixed in one. And then I've just found out recently that we've had a little change in some asthma medication. So, it's inconsistencies with some of our freshmen. You might have a great week or 2, and then, other guys trying harder. Maybe you're resting on your laurels, whatever. But there's a lot of jockeying that's going on. But I know because in that same scrimmage, I think Brandon Carlson had 4 or 5 blocks. And it's not just the ones they're blocking, but it's the ones that they're changing too. So you get into that defensive field goal percentage. And Lahat, I thought Lahat was really good this last Saturday. He'd been sick. So we finally got everybody together. Everybody's healthy and kind of playing together, and some sparks are flying. But size-wise, there's some guys that can protect the rim and go after some things. I think we can also rebound and then get out and run like.
Is that what you want to do this year? Do you want to get out? Stylistically, teams are going to change. You're going to adapt and tweak what you want to do based on the personnel you have. And as we've said, you've got a lot of new faces this year. What would you like to do? What stylistically? I know you want to be tough and play defense. That's always a hallmark of your teams. But going the other way, do you want to get out and run?
I want to try to score early.
Okay.
And we've stressed it more through the summer and now.
Before teams can get really set.
Yeah. And try to score early, and for example, on Saturday in our secret scrimmage, and obviously it's one game, but we got 1.36 points in transition. And that was our most effective. We up and down and would have been in the top 5 in the country. in terms of percentage of points in transition. So Boise wasn't a big offensive rebounding team, and they sent a bunch of guys back, which you say, well, geez, and we were still scoring against a team that wasn't committed to crashing the glass.
Right.
So then herein lies the problem. If you play a bigger, more physical offensive rebounding team, you got to block them out, or there will be no running. The only thing you do is take it out of the net. But we are trying to push it more even when the ball goes in the net. But, first and foremost, it's playing with a lot of energy defensively. There's going to be times in games that it doesn't make sense to run. It might be before a media timeout. You might have played 2 straight minutes. So, okay, we're kidding ourselves. But, man, when we have a timeout and maybe a fresh couple of bodies come in the game, we are going to stress, hey, let's run, and remind guys when they're fresh. And we expect guys to be able to do that in a normal game. Not all the time, but when those opportunities present themselves.
Do you have a running lineup? Do you have a lineup that's really been able to get out and go for you? 5 guys that can really get out and go?
I would think we could be as have as much power on a wing as we'd ever have with Booth and Timmy out on the wing.
Yep.
I mean, that's what they like to do.
Run those wings.
And if those guys rebound the ball, which we're going to need our guards to rebound, there is no outlet. Those guys will be the pusher of the ball. And then, Rylan, who's playing some point for us, would get out and fill the lane. But one of the biggest keys is putting some rim pressure on them all the time. There's got to be one big that is sprinting his butt off and gets down and makes somebody guard him at the rim, and oftentimes that opens up other guys on the perimeter. So, and then have a trailer come in. So there's a lot of energy being spent getting up and down the floor.
You and I have talked about this before, and we may have talked about it a month or 2 ago too, but for the listeners that are first time around, I kind of feel, looking at your roster, and I think you do too, this was one of the more potentially versatile lineups or rosters that you have, with guys that could be interchangeable parts. You mentioned Booth. Booth could be a point guard. Booth could be a 2. Booth could be a 3.
Yep.
Timmy Allen could play multiple positions for you. It sounds like Mickey could play a number of different positions for you too. That's kind of the way the game is going, too. I mean, we've seen the NBA go that way. International basketball has been that way for a while. Is
Absolutely.
that the way you kind of like to play?
Well, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that the game is, it's going to be interesting moving the 3-point line back 1.5 feet. I think that might separate a few people. That there was a lot of threes taken. I got to believe that number's going to drop. But, you got to – the thing is, you got to be able to guard. You can say you're a 1, 2, or 3 all you want, but can you guard the point guard?
Correct.
And can you guard a shooter that's coming off? There's a lot of different elements, and I think the game is more of a positionless game than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It's a little bit of a Draymond Green copycat. Golden State Warriors playing small with a bunch of skill sets. But I'm really curious to see how the big man, if he doesn't make his way back into our game now, with the 3-point line moving farther. I just think there's going to be, at least the teams that have shooters, obviously if you do the math, you got to get out a little bit further. There'll be a little bit more of an operating space. I hope so, because I've been kind of frustrated. It seemed like the big man is getting phased out of the game, with a lot of threes being shot and smaller lineups. So, and we've got some quality bigs in our program. We're going to, that's the wrinkle, right? If we can guard a team that's spread and gets out around the floor and keep them from making a large number of threes, you can impose a lot of problems on a team with some size.
Right.
You can make, and one of the big things with our offensive concept is let's try to get the other team in the bonus. Let's try to foul some guys out, because that's a significant amount of change in lineups, and if you can pound the ball inside and have some passing skills. So I think it's important, and I think that, along with some versatility in the backcourt with guys that can play a bunch of positions, certainly I think you're right on when you say we're as versatile as we've been.
All right, let's take a timeout. Larry and some of the guys, and I think it was Booth and Timmy, went over to San Francisco for Pac-12 Media Days a couple of weeks ago. And we'll get some thoughts on the conference as a whole and where the Utes fit in and some of that stuff as we continue on here. We'll be done at 7 tonight, and this is the Coaches Show from Learfield IMG College. All presented by our friends at Pepsi. Every touchdown, every dunk, their Mountain Dew Code Red dunks and touchdowns. Enjoy one. The official soft drink of Utah basketball and Utah athletics is Pepsi. Larry and I talking hoops tonight. The preseason exhibition, the lone exhibition game, open to you guys on Wednesday night, 6:30 at the John M. Huntsman Center against UT Tyler. And then the regular season opener will be over in Reno a week from tomorrow. You guys were over in San Francisco a couple of weeks back. Preseason media day over there. Got to see you playing a little Jimi Hendrix guitar in the hallway, waiting for your time on set.
Oh, the little mini guitar.
Yeah, the
backpacker.
little mini guitar you had out there. So how was it? Do you enjoy that one day over there and hanging out and seeing all the other coaches and players and doing some interviews?
Yeah, it's a well done day. I think the league does a good job at the league offices, and it's very well organized. Whether they call it like a car wash, where you go in and you probably have 20 things on your list, the different entities, and try to schedule it. But it was really fun spending time with the guys. We had a little dinner the night before. I took the guys out, and Lena, and just spending time with people you like to be around. And then it's fun watching the players do their interactions with other teams. They always have ping pong and different stuff going on. So it's a good opportunity, I think, for players that have put themselves in a position to be spokesmen for their team. And it's kind of a little mini all-star recognition for them, I think, to have 24 players there kind of rubbing shoulders and getting to know each other. So I think it's a really positive day.
You know most of the coaches already, but there's 3 new faces this year. A guy that you played against over in Hawaii a couple of years ago when he was coaching USF, Kyle Smith's now up at Wazoo. Mick Cronin's the new guy at UCLA over from Cincinnati, and then Mark Fox goes from Georgia to California. Did you know many of those guys at all? Did you have any relationships? Did you get to know them a little bit?
Yeah, I actually, all those guys, for different reasons. We played, when I was coaching in Montana, we actually played Mark Fox's team, who was Nevada's coach.
That's right.
Here in the first round, and so we've always kind of stayed in contact after that game. And Mick's always been a guy that I get a kick out of when we're out recruiting. He's done it a little differently in Cincinnati. It'll be interesting to see the dynamic of the 2 different styles of environments for your recruiting. But he's always gotten his guys. I think our league's really upgraded when it comes to those coaches. And then Kyle, was an Ivy League coach and ended up at San Francisco and beat us in the first game of the tournament in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So, I respect all those guys, and I think not that the 3 previous coaches weren't any good, but we really got 3 new coaches heading in, which is a lot of unknown for 3/4 of the league. To not, you kind of get in patterns with certain people, so it's always those curveballs coming from those 3. But it's good. The quality, I think, is going to be great, and kind of curious to see how each of the stories plays out.
Speaking of unknown, that's kind of how I see the Pac-12 this year, Larry. I know there was a preseason poll, but the preseason polls don't really mean anything. You've got to go out and do it. But this league this year, to me, at least 10 of those 12 teams are going to be really, really competitive, and maybe it's all 12 teams. I know what the hierarchy was in the poll, but I could see this being a year where anywhere from 1 through 8, 1 through 9, you could throw them in a hat and draw some names out. Because I look at the league overall, and I had to fill out a ballot.
Yeah.
And I struggled with it. I've done it every year that we've been in the Pac-12 conference, and this year might have been the toughest year for me to try and rank them 1 through 12 in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado's got a number of guys back. I think that, and then the recruiting class, Oregon had some guys late, in Arizona with some of the players but those still are freshmen, so it takes a minute. I just, as always, once Christmas is over, New Year's, and we start conference, that's when you really get into some hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
You start knowing a lot more about what each of the teams in the Pac-12. In the meantime, I'm the biggest fan for all 11 teams. I want everybody to kind of get some things dialed in, catch some breaks, because it's not often talked about, but this is a huge time, November and December, to have some people get quality wins. And the magic number for our league, being a Power 5 league that historically has shown that there'll be plenty of representation in the NCAA tournament, is to win 75% of your preseason games. and you got to make sure you have a handful of those elite games in there too. So we'll try to get through it all ourselves and navigate it, and then here we go in the regular season, and then it'll be a slugfest, and we'll probably be able to know a little bit more. But I'm with you. I have no idea how it's going to shake out.
I don't think there's a definitively great team in the league. I think there's a lot of really good teams with the potential to maybe take that step and be very good or great.
Right.
But right now I couldn't put my finger on and say, yeah, this team, they're going to do this, because I just think it's hard to do. We'll talk a little bit about that non-conference schedule and the opener at Nevada and, of course, the game coming up on Wednesday night. We'll do that next right here from Learfield IMG College. From the Huntsman basketball facility here on campus, right across the way, we'll have exhibition basketball on Wednesday night with UT Tyler, and then a week from Tuesday, you guys open it up. And the non-conference schedule is a good one, Larry. You begin on the road at Nevada against former UCLA head coach Steve Alford, who takes over there. But that's a whole new team. That's not going to look anything like the team that came in here on New Year's Eve last year or whatever that was.
I hope not.
those guys they had like 7 seniors on that team.
Yeah, plenty of transfers. And, it'll be different. Starting on the road, it's a fun group. I mean, I think we all are ready to get it started. I think we got a lot out of Saturday's scrimmage. I mean, a lot of things kind of came clear to us when it was over. And, again, some of those big items that are happening all the time. We keep the game simple, and let's make sure that we don't turn it over. Boise had 10 less turnovers than us. And it's like, which one of those would you like to have back? and then the defensive and rebounding stuff. Just let's find those staples, and then we'll navigate our way through a bunch of different styles and different things. And we're having fun, and you just try to keep getting better.
I'm going to guess in a game like that, you know what Steve Alford wants to run, but you may not know much of his personnel because it's a first game. So you're just going to go out and guard the action or guard the philosophy that you think he's going to bring, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Maybe Steve thought that was the offense for UCLA, and maybe it's. Yeah, I don't think, I think there's an exhibition game that we'll have, but there's not going to be a whole lot of data. And it really gets back to what I mentioned earlier. It's about us.
Right.
Let's control what we can. And what you're always hoping for in basketball is not beating yourself. You can't do that with turnovers. You can't do it by giving up extra shots and, easy baskets in and around the rim and not running. If we just take care of the staples and the non-negotiables within our program, I think we can win plenty of games. And then we'll start getting into scouting reports and the importance of, the mental side of it, which a lot of these guys as freshmen haven't experienced either. So there's a lot of parts to it. It's like kind of learning a new language and then advancing on that and putting some things together. So it's exciting for us, but I think we'll be ready to go and get things kicked off Wednesday, and then, as you said, on the road Tuesday.
Next Tuesday at Nevada. Then you're home with Minnesota as a big non-conference game.
Yeah.
Potential to see Baylor in the tournament at Myrtle Beach. You've got San Diego State. You've got Kentucky. It's a good non-conference schedule. I mean, that's the type of schedule you need, as you were talking about earlier. Conference needs overall. It's not just, as you've learned the last few years. It isn't about getting better in the conference season. That's only part of it. You've got to do well in the non-conference season. I think the committee's made that pretty clear.
Well, yes, and, it's a difficult schedule. We're going to have to be dialed in and, to give yourself an opportunity. When the NCAA committee slices this up all at the end, I know one thing, you have to have some of those quadrant one wins. And if you don't play them, you can't win them.
Right.
So, and then the flip side of that is, okay, the directive from the league is to try to win 75% of your games. So it's kind of a balancing act of finding that balance. But I'm excited about our schedule. We get to play at Staples. We get to play at T-Mobile,
right,
where our tournament is, and that tournament out in Myrtle Beach is no joke of an event, and BYU here and Weber across town and Minnesota here. So there's not many nights off in that deal.
Final segment coming back on the other side to wrap it up next from Learfield IMG College. Monday night. The University of Texas at Tyler comes in on Wednesday night. What do you want to get done in that scrimmage? Or I should say exhibition.
Yeah, no, it's I know that they're going to be not as big, but it's a fast pace that they play with, and as I said before, it's just let's take care of ourselves, play really hard, see what we can learn against somebody new. I think we have a pretty good idea what it is they like to run, and so we put some of that in this week, get a little more specific. But it's just go out and play hard, play together, and have some fun, and then we'll break down some film and get to do it again.
All right. It'll be Wednesday night at the Huntsman Center. We'll be on the air at 6:15, myself and Jim Soto, with a 6:30 start time, UT Tyler, and then a week from Tuesday, it's on to the opener at Reno. We'll talk to you again on this show in about a month or so, but we'll see you on Wednesday night at the Huntsman Center. This has been Utah Basketball from Learfield IMG College. Go Utes!